Prince Louis has some unlikely advice for the England football team.
Oh, so cute. I can't wait to see that. And the king, is he fed up with video calls with Harry and Meghan's children? We're going to find out.
Is King Charles really fed up with video calls from Harry and Meghan's children? Reports are swirling that the king is growing tired of only seeing his grandkids through a screen. But is this just royal gossip, or is there truth behind the claims? Today, we break it all down, uncover the real relationship between King Charles and his California-based grandkids, and discuss what's next for the Sussexes and the royal family.
Hello and welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into the lives of two rather famous royal couples on either side of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex right here in California.
And I'm Katie Nichol, and I'll have all the latest news from the Prince and Princess of Wales here in the UK. And it's been quite a busy week already for the Prince of Wales. He's been out and about visiting the England football team ahead of England's first match on Sunday. The Prince had only just actually caught his breath because he'd been taking part in last week's D-Day commemorations, both in Portsmouth, over here in the UK, and in Normandy. And before we talk football, I think we really need to just take a look back at those D-Day commemorations. Kinsey, I'm sure you tuned in and watched from across the pond, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to point out to you, and I don't know if you heard the same kind of whispers, but when the Queen first passed, I felt like there was concern about, and of course no one is ill, the Queen has just passed, the King has become the King. I feel like there were whispers of the King potentially being envious of Prince William's popularity. And over the last week, I have seen such strength and unity and friendship and, just real beauty in the relationship between the King and Prince William. I don't see any of that concern over, jealousy of polling numbers, none of that. It just seems like this is a strong team. Are you feeling the same thing where you are?
I think William and Charles are in terms of their relationship, in a really strong place. I mean, it's not actually that long ago when you consider that there were rumours of a bit of friction between father and son, rumours that perhaps William didn't think everything his father was doing was the right way to be going about things. I mean, I'm thinking about the Prince's Trust and William not wanting to take on the Prince's Trust. He wanted to create his own foundation, which he has done, but very much with a view to consolidating his charity work. And I think we've seen the King sort of doing that. The feeling I get is that they're very much on the same page now. They're very much aligned. And I think that's down to, obviously, the success of the transition. Charles needs William's full support. You've got the King here needing his Prince of Wales, needing his deputy, arguably more than ever, because, of course, he's going through cancer treatment. And as we saw at the D-Day landings, and as we saw at the commemoration of the D-Day landings, that really important 80th anniversary, there was a moment towards the end of that second day where William stood in for his father at a reception for state leaders and presidents, something ordinarily that we would expect to see the monarch at. And instead we saw William. So we saw William flexing his muscle as a sort of statesman on the international world stage and doing really well. And as you say, Kinsey, none of that sense of competition about, this needs to be the King being seen to do this. King was more than happy, on the advice of his medical team, to stand down from that engagement, bearing in mind that he'd done everything at Portsmouth. He'd given a brilliant speech. He'd been there in Normandy, given another excellent speech. He'd been at the most important events. And he was more than happy to sort of hand that event over and allow William to represent him. And I think that says so much.
Let's get into it. According to sources, King Charles is keen to build a closer bond with Archie and Lilibet, but he's frustrated that his interactions are mostly limited to video calls. A report from the claims that Charles is longing for face-to-face time with his grandkids, but has only met them a handful of times. So, is the King really getting sick of these virtual visits? Or is there more to the story? But let's be honest. Harry and Meghan's move to California created a massive divide between them and the rest of the royal family.
About their evolved relationship, about the faith and the trust that the King has in his son and heir as the Prince of Wales. And of course it gave William an opportunity to, as I say, flex his muscle on the international stage. You've got him shaking hands with all of the prime ministers and the presidents, with Macron, with Zelensky, meeting President Joe Biden. And, you know, that really is, that's elevation for Prince William. That's putting him in a really fundamental role, and obviously with the King's blessing.
Absolutely. And you talk about the King's ridiculous schedule throughout the D-Day events. And we just recently heard that Queen Camilla has said to friends, I mean, he's working himself like crazy. Like, he just refuses to take a beat. So it was nice to see Prince William step up and step in for him for a moment, because it does sound like he is just running himself ragged. And I think that that's his work ethic. I think the King has always had an incredible work ethic. I want to touch base with you briefly on the Princess of Wales, because we did hear from her over the weekend, and it was nice to hear from her. She wrote a letter to the Irish Guards apologizing for missing their parade rehearsals on Saturday. Normally she would actually attend this, and she would inspect them before trooping the color, but she has taken some time away from her official duties to treat, it's preventative chemotherapy to treat some form of cancer. In a letter signed by Catherine, she said it was a great honor to be the group's ceremonial leader, and that she hopes to be able to represent, she says, I hope to be able to represent you all once again very soon. I love hearing from her. I know that it was just kind of a brief shout out, but it gives us kind of a sense that she's still here, and she's going to be back in the future.
Absolutely. And I think it's that's the whole point, isn't it? She's not in the spotlight. She wasn't at that rehearsal. In a week where I think her absence has been very, very acutely felt. You know, we would ordinarily have seen her by her husband's side at something as important as those D-Day commemorations. I mean, don't forget, she had a grandmother who served in the war as a decoder at Bletchley. So, you know, she's got her own connections through her own family line to the war veterans. She would have absolutely been there, and I think she was very missed. And of course, we don't believe that we're going to be seeing her at Trooping the Colour on Saturday. We're told that that's very unlikely to be the case. She wasn't there to review the lineup of the Irish Guards, and as their colonel, ordinarily she would have been. And I think these are the moments where we're really missing her from her role in public life. And I thought that letter was a lovely thing to just drop in over the weekend.
And with Harry's recent visits to the UK being brief and without his children, it's clear there's a level of distance. But is Charles pushing for a reunion? Or is this just another case of royal sources making mountains out of molehills? Let's not forget, Charles is busy. The man is battling cancer while still fulfilling his royal duties. So, could this so-called frustration just be the reality of a grandfather who simply wishes he could spend more time with his grandkids?
Just a reminder that she is honoured to be a colonel, Colonel Catherine. She signed her letter. She's very proud of being colonel of that regiment, and that she looks forward to being back with them again soon. Of course, this letter has then prompted a lot of speculation again in terms of, well, when are we going to see her? When is the princess going to come back? I get a sense of frustration from the palace in terms of wanting to play down any when will Catherine be returning to work. It'll be when she's signed off by her medical team. It'll be when she's fully through this, when she's finished her treatment and she feels well enough to be back in the public domain. But I think letters such as this, small sort of moments where we know that she's in the background, we're not necessarily seeing her in the spotlight, are important, just as a reminder that she's there. And, you know, Kinsey, we've spoken on the show before about how she has been spotted out and about in Windsor, and told she's even back up to doing the school run now, which is great, and all suggests that she has turned a corner, as we had heard, that she is doing well. But I think, you know, we have to be very careful to not put any pressure on her to return to work. It will be when she is good and ready and in her own timeline. And on just saying that, of course, she wasn't at the big society wedding of the year, or perhaps even the decade. It was a pretty fantastic turnout for Hugh Grosvenor, the Duke of Westminster's wedding on Friday. He married his fiancée, Olivia Henson, in a wonderful ceremony at Chester Cathedral before a pretty lavish, and I'm told rather late night reception at Eaton Hall, which is the family seat. And we saw William turn up at the wedding on his own. There had been rumours in the media that Prince George might might be accompanying him as his +1. Friday was, of course, a school day. Perhaps William thought he was better at school than at a wedding. And it gave William a chance to actually catch up with some of his friends. His cousin, Princess Eugenie, was there. Many of his old family friends, the Van Cutsums, were there. And the king wasn't there because he was taking a break after the D-Day commemorations. And, of course, Catherine wasn't there as well. But I think it's a strong an encouraging sign that William was at that wedding on his own. I get the feeling that he wouldn't have been at something like a society wedding if Kate wasn't really feeling okay. And I think the fact that he was there and happy to be there on his own, again, should just be seen as an indication that back at the home, things are perhaps going better than they were.
Absolutely. Olivia looked so beautiful on her wedding day. I loved the veil. It was unbelievable. But I was so excited to see that her hairstylist was Richard Ward, who, I believe it was his artistic director, but Richard Ward is kind of the go-to for celebrity hair as far as I've seen recently, with Sophie being one of his favorites. Richard Ward was responsible for Princess Kate's adorable hairdo on her wedding day. So when you talk about this being the society crowd, when I hear that it's Richard Ward's team that's responsible for the hairdo, that's all I need to know. That gives me the stamp of approval for, like, this is the elite, right?
Now, let's talk about what this means for the Sussexes. With tensions still high and no sign of Meghan returning to the UK anytime soon, could this report put even more pressure on Harry to bring the kids over? Or will this just be another headline that fades into the background? Let me know what you think in the comments. Should Harry make more of an effort to visit, or is King Charles the one who needs to take a trip to Montecito? If Charles truly wants a closer relationship with Archie and Lilibet, will we see a royal reconciliation down the line?
Oh, very, very much it was the elite, and I suppose as close to a royal wedding as you're going to get without that sort of famous balcony appearance. And of course, the king wasn't there, but I think everyone was very understanding of the fact that he had 2 very, very busy days. And Kinsey, you were talking earlier about his relentless and tireless work ethic, which is very characteristic of the king. And yes, I think the Queen is probably a little bit concerned that he might be overdoing it, but those 2 days in his diary were absolutely non-negotiable. He was clearly quite happy to miss the wedding of his godson because Hughie Grosvenor is one of his godchildren. I'm sure ordinarily he would have loved to have been there, but this was all about making sure that he could be at the D-Day commemorations and be at the most important parts of that, which he was. And the start of the week, we haven't seen the king. We're expecting to see him at some point later on, but we'll see him at Ascot too. That's coming up. But I think this is all a case of the king pacing himself. And of course, as the king paces himself, it's down to the other members of the royal family to step in and to be seen, to be visible, because we've only got a few weeks until the summer now, when of course things will get quieter. They will be going up to Scotland, and the king will be going up there for his sort of break out of the spotlight. And so these coming weeks, we've got Garter Day coming up, we've got Ascot coming up, we've got Holyrood Week coming up. So the king's going to be quite busy. So I think we'll see more of the younger royals out and about. And indeed, we saw the Prince of Wales out and about on Monday, Kinsey. He was visiting the England football team, and he had a message to pass on from Prince Louis.
That's right. He said, I was on the school run this morning with the children, and I said, what shall I say to the England team today? He said, the best bit of advice I got to ask you was to eat twice the amount you normally would eat. So I then had visions of all of you running around with massive great tummies and loads of stitches on the pitch. So I think maybe take my youngest's advice with a pinch of salt. So I guess Louis is just saying, fill up. Who's telling Louis that he needs to fill up before big events?
Well, I think it's probably his parents trying to convince him to have a good breakfast and telling him you need that energy to get through the day.
So cute, so cute. He is honestly, without a doubt, my favorite royal. And who would have thought? Because he's just so small. He used to be so tiny. It's so fun to watch them growing up. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I also was surprised at the amount of D-Day events we saw them at, because I was under the impression that they were going to pull out of many more events than they have due to the general election. So I have been surprised at the amount that we have seen them, but I also admire the way that the media has made sure to prioritize the general election so that the royal family perhaps doesn't feel any guilt for putting themselves out there in certain situations. Do you mind if we transition to Harry and Meghan really quickly?
Or are we looking at a permanent long-distance relationship between the king and his youngest grandchildren? One thing's for sure, family dynamics are complicated, but when you add crowns, palaces, and years of drama, it's a whole different game. This royal drama is far from over, and we'll be keeping a close eye on every new update. So, if you love keeping up with the royal family and want all the latest news, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We break it all down right here, and you won't want to miss what's next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.